If you appoint me.
Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for your direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Let's honor America by saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Mayor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Kazandrian.
Here.
Councilor Lenzi.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
9 present.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. It's with great pleasure and honor that we invite into the council chambers 4 Lowell police officers, Mr. Steve Cochran, who did a very noble thing with saving a citizen's life at the Concord River. We have Tanesha Horn to address the council, Walker Offens, June 27th, and the mayor is very pleased and honored to appoint Bobby Tublaby to the Mayor's Youth Commission, a young man, a graduate of UMass Lowell, who resides in the city. He wants to get involved in our city, and Mr. Tublaby will be coming to the podium. And also, Kathy Kelly from Alternative House. I visited the site Friday, and it's absolutely remarkable. But let me get to the citations. With all the negative things, not yet, Bob. With all the negative things that are happening in our city, we do have some positive things as well. And I'm going to read the citation, and this citation is to Steve Cochran. Be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hereby honors Steve Cochran for being an outstanding citizen in coming to the aid of a resident who is struggling to survive in the rushing waters of the Concord River. Steve is the assistant night manager of the city parking garages in the City of Lowell and was working at the time of the event. Steve was also assisted in getting William McCabe to shore by 4 Lowell police officers and a National Parks Service Ranger. The entire City of Lowell is proud to honor this distinguished citizen who truly represents what working together as a community is all about. Given this 9th day of June 2009 by Mayor Caulfield, the entire City Council, and I want to read those police officers who were there to assist Mr. Cochran. Officer Erin Byrne. Officer Christopher Beaumont. Officer Brian Keefe. And Officer Michael Candriotis. Let's give them a round of applause for the gallant.
Thank you very much, and the Lowell Police, Fire, and EMTs did a very good job. Thank you.
Any of the Lowell Police Department would like to, Chief? Chief LaValle.
Mr. Mayor, they're all so shy, and I think that on behalf of the Lowell Police Department, I know, it would be difficult for those officers to come forward, but this is what the officers do on a daily basis. These 4 individuals are great police officers, and I think it's so important to note that a couple of these officers potentially could have been laid off if those budget cuts had occurred. And because they did not, they are here today. They are in front of this audience, and these are important members of this city, of this organization. I'm very proud of what they did. I'm so grateful to all these officers. They do a tremendous job every single day, and I appreciate the work they do. So thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you, the council, Mr. Manager.
Chief, I know you're proud of the men and women who serve in the Lowell Police Department. The City Council, the Lynch administration, the citizens of the city are grateful and honored to have them represent us. Thank you so much for your heroism, and thank you for being there with the help of Steve Cochran. Thank you so much. Tanisha Horn, are you in the audience? You'd like to come? Come right, here you go.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm representing Whole Armor International Church. We're a local church here in Lowell on 60 Hastings Street, and we're having our annual Walk for Orphans. This year, we're anticipating for it to be a large event. It's going to be held on Saturday, June 27th, from 9 to 4 p.m. at the Sampus Pavilion here in Lowell. It's going to be a 3-mile walk to raise money to improve the lives of orphans in Africa, where we're currently building schools and providing clean water and electricity to the villages in Uganda, East Africa, as well as the Congo. The walk route that we're taking is the one that Lowell uses for the Heart Walk every year. And we do have information if you all are interested in coming. You know, it's for the community, and, you know, families are invited. We have a lot of activities for the children, and it's a free event. There's no charge. We're going to provide food as well as entertainment, games, and we're just looking forward to having a great time. And we just want to let everyone know that we're here. We're a local church, and we're looking to do what we can to improve the community as well. And we're very happy. We've worked with the mayor several times. And after this, we're going to launch another back-to-school program, which will be held in August, so that way we can help children in the community who may need school supplies, backpacks, things like that. So we just wanted to make you all aware of that. And that's
Tanisha,
all.
when is the walkathon again?
It's Saturday, June 27th. It starts at 9 o'clock in the morning is the registration, and 4 o'clock is when it ends.
9 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
Okay. And how far is the walk?
It's 3 miles.
3 miles.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's the route for the Heart Walk, where we're going down, making a right on the School Street Bridge, going down Pawtucket Street, going across the Rourke Bridge, and back down the boulevard.
Hope to see you there.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. I met this young man at the peace rally we had a few weeks ago. He's been at the council meetings, and he's a graduate of UMass Lowell. He's going to reside downtown Lowell. And I met with him the other day for lunch, and he said, Mr. Mayor, I want to get involved in this city. I want to contribute. And I'm going to appoint him to the Mayor's Youth Commission. But after you hear this young man speak, you will fall in love with him, and he's just a great guy. Bobby Tubleby, want to come to the podium, please? Give him a round of applause. He's just a great guy.
Good evening, Mayor Caulfield, City Manager Lynch, council members, and residents of the city. My name is Bobby Tubielli.
Tubielli, okay.
Tubielli, yes. And I'm a resident of Lowell and a graduate of the University of Massachusetts Lowell. I thank you, and I'm honored to serve the city, especially its youth population, as a member of the Mayor's Joint Youth Commission. The aim of the commission is to bring together the youth of Lowell, youth providers, community leaders, and elected officials to influence positive change on issues related to the youth in the city of Lowell. It goes without saying that 2009 has been and will be a challenging year on a myriad of fronts, dealing with budget cuts, finding employment for displaced and unemployed workers, being forced to do more with less, and possibly more importantly, addressing any educational gaps and violence in the city. I do not propose to have all the answers, nor do I think positive change will happen overnight. What I do hope and what I do expect is increased communication and action by all in Lowell towards the benefit and progress of this great city. Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you and City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Last Friday, I was invited to the opening of the alternative house in South Lowell, Bernier Street. And although I was late, I was amazed at the three beautiful homes that have been built. I believe it's a cost of $1.1 million. And Mr. Manager, I believe it's $500,000 in home bill funds that were contributed to that. But these families who might have a problem with domestic violence and so forth will have a place to go. Families, not just a person. And one is handicap accessible. And Kathy Kelly, you deserve all the plaudits and your entire staff. That the homes are absolutely beautiful. They were built with quality workmanship, class, and just remarkable cul-de-sac. And all the homes that were built, you could stand in that home and you cannot hear the traffic on 495 because it was well insulated, well built. So Kathy Kelly, once again, it's a pleasure to have you in the council chambers, and come to the podium and show this council, this manager, what these beautiful homes look like.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Mayor Caulfield, members of the City Council, City Manager, your staff, and the City of Lowell. If I could maybe pass this, I didn't bring an easel, so maybe we can pass this around. I am just really excited to let all of you know during these very challenging and sometimes troubling times that we're having right now that there is a small ray of sunshine. This project was started over 6 years ago, and a number of individuals, funding sources, grants and foundations came forward to help to fund this project. We now, in our efforts, as you know, Alternative House has tried to create a continuum of care for survivors of domestic violence. In our efforts to work with the city in its plan to end homelessness, I'm pleased to say that we have 6 units now that will be occupied on, or I know Attorney Flood has been involved in this project, he's here, on July 1st, give or take a few days. There are still a couple of legal wranglings that we're going through. But I just want to thank the city. Over $500,000 in city home funds went toward this project. Over $900,000 in CDAC money out of housing innovation funds went to this project. There were 2 individuals from Lowell and the Greater Lowell community who really deserve a great deal of thanks. Martha Mayo, I know many of you know her, and also Bob McKittrick, who owns McKittrick Hardware here in Lowell. They both stepped up to the plate before funders came forward and other folks to chair individual fundraising drives to raise money for this project. Bob McKittrick chaired a Men Helping Women and Children fundraising drive, and Martha Mayo chaired a Women Helping Women drive. And together, those 2 individuals helped to raise close to $20,000 to really kick off this effort. The Parker Foundation was instrumental, and many other individuals here in the area. So I thank you. It's an exciting time for us. The units are beautiful, and we have 6 families that will transition out of a transitional housing program and a shelter to move into these units. So thank you very much for taking time to listen to me.
Thank you, Kelly. Kathy, thank you. I must say that these homes were built with the utmost quality workmanship, quality material, hardwood flooring, beautiful kitchen cabinets, bathrooms, everything. Everything is beautiful, and Kathy, thank you for your leadership, for your leadership. I would like to now recognize Councilor Rita Mercier with a moment of silence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chamber for Lucille M. Chrisman, a resident of South Lowell. Mrs. Chrisman was the beloved wife of Wilfred Chrisman, who died in March of 2006. They had been married for 55 years at the time of his death. Lou was a parishioner of St. Marie's Church. Surviving Mrs. Chrisman are her 8 children, 3 sons and 5 daughters, Ronald, Wilfred, and James, and her daughters are Marlene, Sandra, Luann, Diana, and Lisa. 22 grandchildren, and 15 great-grandchildren. She was a great lady and a wonderful neighbor, always willing to help anyone. She was well-loved and will be truly missed. And I'd like to offer a moment of silence and darkened chamber for Janet LeMay, beloved wife of Richard LeMay, who survives her. Mrs. LeMay earned an associate's degree in radiology at Northeastern University in Boston and later trained in the X-ray technology at the then St. John's Hospital. Besides her husband, Mrs. LeMay is survived by her 2 sons, Michael and James LeMay, and her beloved granddaughter, Courtney. Her mother, Pauline Bender, was one of the greatest ladies I have ever met. Mrs. LeMay will be truly missed, and I'd like to offer them 2 up for a moment of silence. Thank
We
you.
stand and offer a moment of silence in darkened chambers. Thank you. May they rest in peace. I will now entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting by Council Broderick, seconded by Council Martin. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The minutes have been accepted and placed on file under unfinished business. To take by eminent domain and fee a certain parcel of land in the city of Lowell for municipal purposes, to wit, the layout and acceptance of the following named streets and other municipal purposes associated therewith: Bluebird Terrace, Nightingale Terrace. What is the wish of the body?
Move approval.
Move approved by Council Rita Mercia, second by Council Armin Mercia. Roll call.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Communications from Manager Lynch. Any councilors would like to discuss those communications? Council Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't actually have a communication, but, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say a few words for all of those city employees who stepped up to the plate in terms of giving up their raises for fiscal year 2010, saving more than $1 million. My hat goes off to all of those unions and non-union employees who took the high road to put the needs of the city and its residents before their own. This council knows that lost wages will cause financial pain, but not as much pain as those who were recently laid off. Many more would be laid off if they did not put forth this sacrifice. There were no excuses, just plain determination to do the right thing for the sake of others. They didn't say, we can't decide to give up anything because we can't identify the final numbers from the state. They just gave up their raises for the sake of others. I want to congratulate the firefighters, the superior officers, Lowell 1705, the Merrimack Valley Employees Association, and Local 2532, which could be like Unit C, Unit D, if members of the DPW, and anyone that I may have forgotten. These are the true people that sacrifice, and I commend them and congratulate them. Thank you.
Any other questions on communications for the manager?
I do, Mayor. Thank you. I also want to thank the union members that did give up the furlough days and also to freeze their pay raise. I know we had a few layoffs, Mr. Manager. I just want to ask a question about the layoffs. How we arrived at some of the layoffs that happened. We have individuals like 31 years and 18 years, 25 years. How do you get to that?
Yeah, those are obviously the more challenging layoffs that we did. In large part, I think specifically I think the ones you're referring to. I depended extensively on the input from the department heads and the positions that were being affected. I think it's important to stress here that when we were looking at these layoffs, it wasn't the people. It was the positions that we were affecting, and we were looking for the versatility of the remaining positions to be able to carry out the functions within the department. Having said that, I'm certainly very much in tune with the fact that although these are just positions, there are people that are being affected, and so we tried to do the layoffs in the most respectful and professional way. and we offered our different types of assistance to help them out through this transition, and hopefully we'll be able to work to get them back on in the near future. But again, to speak to the actual decisions, in meeting with the department heads and meeting with the staff to look at what positions would be eliminated and which positions would be retained in order to carry out the functions of the departments.
Okay, my only concern is, with seniority, so many years, do these people have repercussion down the road and go against, sue the city at some point, and a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, and it costs the city a barrel of money because we let these individuals go and they had more seniority. So that's my big concern. That doesn't later on cost the city a ton of money.
Absolutely.
For these lawsuits and things like that. So did we talk to the unions, and is this find out if this is the way to go, where we don't have this problem 2 years, or 3 years, or a year down the road?
Sure.
That's my concern.
The steps in the process here, and the solicitor can jump in to add to the information I'm giving. The process is that the layoffs take place, and now we go into collective bargaining with the unions themselves to do what's known as impact bargaining. What are the impacts that result from these layoffs? And during that period of time, and that's why we have this 2-week paid leave of absence that we provided to the employees, in part because just to provide them with some type of cushion, but also to provide us an opportunity to meet with the unions and talk about some of those issues. And again, it's the issues of, there will be bumping that takes place. We anticipate that people bump into lower level positions, and so that will probably happen. People won't be able to necessarily, they won't be able to bump into higher level positions unless they have the necessary qualifications. But we'll be meeting with the unions to go over those various issues, and certainly I share any concern of, there have been certainly cases in the past in which City of Lowell or other communities have gone through some type of legal proceedings, and we're very cognizant of that.
Well, should we have done that prior, talk to the unions before we lay these people off? You know what I'm saying? But work with the unions and get the individuals that... Sure. Should we have done that first?
Well, we did meet with the unions. We met with yes, we did. We met with the unions to discuss the process that was going to be followed and we didn't discuss the specific positions because that takes place after the fact. And that's the way the legal process is set up.
Okay, thank you.
Council Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, you hit on a point tonight I think is very important, that although these are difficult times, that hopefully the people, the individuals that have been laid off will be the first to be, as the positions become available, will be brought back on board, reactivated, or basically put back to work. I think that's important for people to understand too, that these are very difficult times, and obviously it's a very difficult thing for you and the administration and the department heads to do, but that's all.
And if I could respond to that, that's generally also something that's discussed during the impact bargaining stage, but we did go ahead with that even before we got to the layoffs in discussing with the unions the desire on our part to do a recall of any of the individuals.
Council Amercia, then Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, apparently there are two things that have happened. One is eliminating the job, and secondly, that automatically brought a furlough. Now, when you talk about maybe the job coming back later on, that would require an ordinance, wouldn't it? That would be creating a position that the city council would have to be part of the ordinance function of creating a position. My question is, if that happens, then why isn't the city council responsible for eliminating the job?
Mr. Manager?
We actually didn't, and again, I'll defer to the solicitor if she'd like to add into that. But the positions themselves weren't eliminated. The positions were vacated with the layoffs. The positions are still within the ordinance. They're still within the union contracts. The positions were not eliminated.
They'll be carried.
They'll be carried within the ordinance.
So the positions themselves have not been eliminated.
That's correct.
They've been vacated, followed for a furlough, or rather a
layoff. Yes.
So if those positions get to be filled again in the future, those that were on it would have preference?
For a period of time, yes.
What's the period of time?
That's subject to collective bargaining right now, so I'm in the middle of that at this time.
Like forever?
It may not be forever, but a period of time.
Thank you.
Counsel
I
Martin?
think the city solicitor wants to...
No,
Was-
I'm sorry.
That's what, the only thing that the only thing I was going to add onto that is that, again, these were things that were also discussed with the unions themselves, and they were in agreement. Some of them made specific requests for the budget to reflect $1 to hold that position, and it was a request that was granted by the manager for that specific purpose. It's not necessarily necessary legally, because as the manager explained, the position itself isn't eliminated.
I'll say, Counsel. Counsel Bill Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hesitate to ask this question because I don't want to get people's hopes up, but you know, this is a difficult issue for us. Not many of us have been through this process before. It's certainly most difficult for the people who got those notices Friday. But do I understand, Mr. Manager, that as part of the discussion with the various unions and bargaining units, that some of those people who got a notice Friday may in fact retain a job and bump somebody else, and that somebody who presently doesn't have a notice will then be the person laid off?
That is possible.
I mean, do we anticipate that, you know, is there any way to?
It's difficult to say at this point in time. I'll defer to the solicitor.
The couple of things on that. One, going through the process, there was attention paid to bumping and an attempt made to not put people in a position where they then have to bump if it wasn't necessary. There are other cases, and this is recognized under civil service law, where you might eliminate a position for the sake of needing to eliminate that position on various grounds. That the position may not be as essential as others, although all of them we feel are important, otherwise they wouldn't have been created to begin with. So if somebody is eliminated from a position, then that may also trigger a bumping into some other position. But in those cases, the only way to go was to, again, eliminate a position that it was deemed to be least, have a least impact on the overall functioning of the department. So there are those instances too.
Okay, so it is possible, although this was done in a way to try and minimize.
That's correct.
That.
Absolutely.
So again, that's why I hesitated to ask. I didn't want to create false hopes for people, but I guess we won't know the final word then for another few weeks.
It will take some time to work through that process, but again, this is commonplace in every municipal organization that goes through something like this.
All right, thank you.
Counsel, go ahead.
Wait, to add into that, as we had worked with the unions in the time leading up to the layoffs, unions were also provided with what we had as existing seniority lists, so that they could check those lists, and if there was any discrepancy, they would have an opportunity to then bring it to our attention to make corrections. And I would suspect that despite everyone's best efforts, city administration as well as the unions, that may in fact be the case from time to time as well. That the information that we had, the information that the union had, might not be the exact up-to-date information. But again, it was another measure taken, another step taken to try to avoid an instance of unnecessarily putting somebody in a position of having to bump somebody out.
Okay. Counsel Mike Lindsay, then Counsel Cassandra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For those members of the team that have been laid off and after things sort themselves out and will remain laid off, you said there's some assistance going on in finding their position. As part of the federal stimulus package, are they paying employees up to a year the balance or the difference in what they were getting paid as opposed to the employees that go out and find a new position or a new job? I know some of the companies that we've dealt with, they're paying the difference in their salary for up to 1 year as part of the federal stimulus package, and I guess that's one of the things that maybe is coming up in a career change seminar or whatever assistance we're offering to our employees.
Mr. Manager, Mr. Moses, can you answer that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the council's question. Some of the services we provide, and I'm going to have Mr. Sheehan address the specific question Councilor Lenzi asked regarding the compensation. Employees that are affected, we did provide them with link-in with the Career Center. We actually had the Career Center come up and provide some connection there for them. We've extended the EAP services. By contract, we had it for 60 days for an employee that left employment with the city. We've extended that out for 6 months. They are eligible for health insurance under COBRA, that requires us to provide them with access to the city's health insurance plan for 18 months. Under the federal stimulus, a portion of that is paid for them during the first 6 months. But I'll defer to
Councilor, the Career Center, as the manager said, the Career Center was here yesterday to give a seminar for the affected employees and also for their labor representatives, their union representatives. The two big things that come out of the stimulus program are an additional weekly sum on top of the traditional unemployment. Unemployment is 50% of your gross income, gross weekly income. There's an additional $25 that's paid as a result of the stimulus. The bigger part of that is a contribution towards the COBRA. COBRA typically means that the affected employee, pays 100% of the insurance. At the group rate, cheaper than buying it on your own, but still fairly expensive. As a result of the stimulus, the federal government's picking up 65% of that. So the employees are going from paying 25% to paying 35%, which is quite a bit better than going from 25% to 100%. So those are the two big things. And then for any dependent children, I believe there's a $25 per week allowance for any dependent.
And is that up to a period of 1 year? Is that how that stimulus works?
Currently, they get a year of unemployment benefits, or they get 6 months of benefits spread out over a year. There have been extensions to the unemployment benefits that have been granted so far. It's possible that will happen again, but the Career Center wasn't able to say at this point whether that is likely to happen or not likely to happen.
But as part of that stimulus package, there's no, they're not making up the difference between what an employee goes out and gets a new job and what they were paid formerly?
That's correct.
It's not part.
That's correct.
Councilor Jim Milanazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to commend the unions for working with the administration, and I know that last week was a very tough week here in the City Hall, and hopefully if we can identify grant funds, some of the people that had been laid off will actually be rejoining the ranks here in City Hall. What my question has to do with those that were laid off, and specifically I know that City Solicitor O'Connor talked a little bit about it, but I was always under the impression, and maybe incorrectly, that seniority played a big role in your bumping rights to come back into City Hall in the event that you were in fact laid off. Can someone bump from say a senior clerk's position down to a clerk's position, or is it really more from position to position?
It's seniority certainly matters, but what is key is what your civil service status is, or what your CBA, your union contract, provides. Civil service is the most powerful tool an employee has in terms of retaining or job retention, overall job retention. So generally speaking, if somebody has a head clerk position and the head clerk position was eliminated, they may have civil service protection in a lower clerical position, perhaps a junior clerk, and that's how it would end up working. They could have bumping rights over someone who actually has more time but less civil service protection. And again, it also depends what CBA, what union they belong to. A lot of the unions basically incorporated the Chapter 31 civil service laws. Some of them have very specific grounds for union members in terms of who they can bump and what the limitations are, whether it be within department and within union, and things of that nature.
Okay. Now, over the next 2 weeks, Mr. Manager, are these issues going to be worked out in the next couple of weeks? I know that you had talked about giving paid leave, I think was the term that you used for the next 2 weeks. So during the next 2 weeks, you and I assume the solicitor will be working with and meeting with the unions to work through these issues?
That's correct. We already have a couple of meetings set up, and we're in the process of setting up one other one.
Okay. Thank you.
Council Kazanjian and Council Broderick.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Manager, I was wondering if I could get a list of the individuals that were laid off in each department. And also, can you give me, because I know some departments were hit harder than others, and if I can get the number of individuals that are in each department. And then when I do get it, I can probably talk to you and maybe understand a little bit better. Like I said, I know a lot of departments were hit harder than others. So if I can get the number of individuals in each department and you can give me a list of the names that got laid off from the department, and the ones even if departments didn't get laid off, you can just put that.
We'll make that report available to the entire council.
Great. Yep. Good. Thank you. Okay.
Council Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a point of clarification, when I was talking about you recalling employees, it was through attrition. Over the course of the year, people are going to leave, retire, or voluntarily leave their position. So that's what I was referring to, not bringing positions back. I don't anticipate we're going to come across find money anywhere, and that I don't think we're going to be looking to expand, other than if positions become open through attrition, that we would consider the people that may be going out the door now. Thank you.
Councilor Elliott.
Just briefly, I just want to join my colleagues in expressing my thanks to the unions, and Friday was just not a good day, and we knew it wasn't going to be a good day. I sort of anxious all day, knowing that people were going to get their notices, and seemed helpless. There's nothing we could do. And unprecedented times, we tried to take every action that we possibly could to preserve jobs, and I think we will. It's good to hear that while it's probably little comfort, at least those employees will know that should there be some job openings, whether through, as Councilor Broderick mentioned, through attrition or things get better, that they will be given the opportunity to come back. They should be afforded that opportunity. So I know we get some challenging times ahead with this budget before us and future years, but they should be thanked, and I thank them too.
Before we accept the communication placed on file, Mr. Manager, approximately how much money did the unions come forward with and save the city when they came forward to the wage freezes and so forth?
Approximately $1.2 million.
And how many jobs did that represent? Approximately.
About 24 jobs.
So those union brothers and sisters who came to the table and offered a wage freeze, they saved 24 jobs. And every councilor has complimented them, applauded them, and they deserve all the accolades coming their way, because they did what was right, and they came to the table to save jobs in the city. And I can't say enough about them. I did meet with the fire department. I met with the police superior's officers. I went with the city engineers and 1705 and every union that stepped to that table, and I personally thank them on behalf of the council and Manager Lynch and the residents in this city. Councilor Elliott?
Mayor, we've been talking about the budget, and there is a line item to accept the budget. I wonder if we want to entertain that and set a date, or...
Well, the dates is, when I read that, the dates are in there, Council. So. Any other discussion of communications? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the communications placed on file by Council Milonazo, seconded by Council Rita Mercia. All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The communications are accepted and placed on file. We're going to go into a public hearing now, and those wishing to let me read the ordinance. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 290 thereof, entitled Lowell Zoning Ordinance, by extending existing residential zoning district to include 18 and 20 Weber Street in Lowell. Those wishing to speak in favor, please give us your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes or less to speak.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, James Flood, I'm an attorney with offices at 549 Roger Street. Got to remember that. I represent Gary Blaisdell of Blaisdell Real Estate Investment LLC, who is the owner of the property of 1516 Middlesex Street. He also operates at that address CarStar Auto Center, which I think probably many of you are familiar with. It's a very clean and well-run operation. Because of the economy, more people are now repairing their cars and cleaning them up, and an opportunity has come up where he'd like to expand his business. The piece next door came on the market, and he has entered a purchase and sale agreement. But in order to do that, he needs to extend the zone to cover that piece. This is a rendering of what he intends to do. I'm like Kathy Kelly. I have small pictures that I can give to you people. He intends a complete rehabilitation and renovation of the existing building with the addition on the side. This is what the piece looks like. Right now, the RR zone goes around it. This is the piece next door. The RR zone on the other side is like in the middle of this piece. And what I did is, I also had the zoning map enlarged. And you can see this is the piece we're talking about, and the zone is on the other side and goes on this side. So it's not much of a change. The piece next door is owned by Arthur Santos, who's an attorney who operates his law office there. I've spoken with him. He has no problems with it. We've spoken to the neighbors. We've heard no objections. So I think this would be a good opportunity for Mr. Blaisdell to expand his business. He thinks he'll bring in 5 or 6 more employees, and it will increase the tax revenue for the city. So I'd ask that you favorably vote on it. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Flood. Anyone else wishing to come to the podium and speak in favor?
Hi, my name is Ann Tangway, and I owned the property at 1820 Weber Street for approximately 20 years since my mother passed away. Mr. Blaisdell has been a neighbor of mine for 5+ so years, and there isn't anything that that gentleman would not do to beautify that area. When he bought it from Pelletiers, it was a shamble. If anybody noticed, he painted it red, white, and blue. He does everything that you ask him to do. He got the snow out of his driveway too. It went into my yard, but that was with my permission. But it was off of there so that they could park. There isn't anything that this gentleman won't do for you. So I'm asking you, please let him have the property to enlarge. He might give me a job. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Those wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Public hearing is closed. There's no opposition. What's the wish of the body? Move approval by Councilor Armand Mercia, seconded by Councilor Broderick. Roll call.
Councilor Armand Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott. Councilor Kazanjian. Councilor Lenzi.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
7 yeas, 2 absent, the motion passes.
Mr. Flood.
Yes.
I did business with the Pelletier brothers, who ran an excellent business there for decades, and they always kept the property up neat and clean. I did receive, and Mr. Blaisdell must have addressed this, some residents on Weber Street were complaining about an overspray of paint, and he said he was going to address it, but I wish you, look into it and make sure that...
I will speak to him about it, yes. I
Okay,
will.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on with the agenda. The manager has appointed Steve Haddam, 35 Highland Avenue, and Mohammed Omar, 15 Alton Street. Confirmation from the City Council is not necessary. Accept the communication placed on file by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Lindsay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? It's been accepted. Thank you, Mr. Manager. They're two excellent people. Moving on with the agenda. Authorizing and establishing effective July 1st, 2009, under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, of a revolving fund in the police department using a specific gifted funds to support a new initiative in the police department known as positive ticketing to youths in order to build and strengthen relationships between police officers and youths. Whereas the police department is desirous of establishing a new initiative program known as positive ticketing to build and strengthen relationships between police officers and youths, and whereas under said program, when a youth is observed by police officers performing or engaged in a positive action, such as using a crosswalk instead of jaywalking, the police officer will give the youth a positive ticket, which may be a gift, certificate, or coupon to a local business redeemable for or towards an item of food or merchandise. And whereas this police department program would be entirely supported by specific monetary gifts from local businesses, and whereas Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, authorizes the establishment of a revolving fund in a specific department for the receipt and expenditure of funds for a specified program. And whereas the city manager has recommended the establishment of a revolving fund for said positive ticketing program. Now therefore, it is voted that the City Council of the City of Lowell, in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, as amended, having received the prior recommendation of the City Manager, hereby authorizes the establishment and use of a revolving fund in the Police Department of the City of Lowell for the receipt and expenditure of funds for the purpose of using specific gifts, funds to support a new program in said department known as positive ticketing to youth. Let me see, how much more is there? Motion to waive the full reading by Counsel Broderick, seconded by Counsel Elliott. All in favor of waiving the full reading, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Full reading's been waived. Second reading by title. Vote authorizing and establishing, effective July 1st, 2009, under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53 and a half, of a revolving fund in the police department using specific gifted funds to support a new initiative in the police department known as positive ticketing to youths in order to build and strengthen relationships between police officers and youths.
Move approval.
Move approval by Counsel Elliott, seconded by Counsel Broderick. Any discussion? And I just want to let the viewing audience know and the taxpayers know this is being funded by the local businesses in the city. Well, roll call.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Vote authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and expend an assistance to firefighters equipment grant offered through the Department of Homeland Security in the amount of $25,000 for the City of Lowell Fire Department. Whereas the Department of Homeland Security has grant funds available under its Assistance to Firefighters Equipment Grant Program in the amount of $25,000, and whereas the City of Lowell is desirous of applying for, accepting, and expending said grant funds offered from the Department of Homeland Security, and whereas the grant will make available to the city the sum of $25,000 to allow the Lowell Fire Department purchase 2 infrared thermal imaging cameras. These cameras will replace the cameras in each of the command cars. Whereas this grant application is a grant program which a required city match in the amount of approximately $5,000, 20%. Now therefore be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell that the city manager be and is hereby authorized to apply for, accept, and expend funds from the Department of Homeland Security under its Assistance to Firefighters Equipment Grant in the amount of $25,000 for the City of Lowell Fire Department. Second reading by title. And it reads, authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and expend an Assistance to Firefighters Equipment Grant offered through the Department of Homeland Security in the amount of $25,000 for the City of Lowell Fire Department. Any discussion, any debate? Move for approval by Counsel Broderick, second by Counsel Lindsay. Roll call.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Okay. Authorizing the continuation during fiscal year 2010 of the 5 revolving funds listed below in this vote. Whereas by City Council vote on the dates shown below, revolving funds were established pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53 and a half as follows. Department of Public Works, demolition of abandoned buildings, August 22nd, 1992, $120,000. Police Department, Traffic Enforcement, October 26, 1993, fund receipt not to exceed 50% of motor vehicle fines. Department of Public Works, landfill, September 27, 1994, $15,000 max expenditure. City Auditor, Brownsfield cleanup, August 12, 2008, $460,000. City Auditor, vacant and foreclosing property, November 4, 2008, $50,000. Whereas provided in said law each year since the creation of said revolving funds and prior to the commencement of each fiscal year, the City Council has voted to continue said revolving funds for the ensuing fiscal year, and whereas it is desirable to continue said revolving funds during fiscal year 2010, and whereas the City Manager has recommended the continuation of said revolving funds for fiscal year 2010, now therefore be it voted that the City Council of the City of Lowell, in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53.5, as amended, hereby authorizes the continuation during fiscal year 2010. Second reading by title. Vote authorizing the continuation during fiscal year 2010 of the 5 revolving funds listed below in this vote. Any discussion? Any debate? Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager, regarding the vacant and foreclosing property revolving account that was established last year, through Mr. Sheehan, we had received a report last week. When I say we, the Foreclosure Prevention Task Force, and I didn't bring it with me, so I apologize, but I think the amount was somewhere in the order of $25,000 in the account. And there were some liens, if you will, or fines, excuse me, placed against some properties of $300 per ticket, if you will. What are we doing to follow up on those liens that have now been placed on some of these abandoned properties? I'm not sure I'm asking the question correctly, but I know that the way the ordinance is written, you can actually up to each for $300 every week can be assessed. And I know that there was, I think, 30 or 40 tickets placed, but we had received only one fine of $300. The other monies in the account were put there by registering. So the city's been doing a good job getting these absentee landlords to register the property, so those funds have been going into this revolving account, but the actual funds that are being now charged in the way of fines, I just would like a status as to what's going on with that.
We'll speak to the building commissioner and get a status report on where we are with those specific fines.
Okay.
Offhand, I'm not sure. Obviously, we, as you indicated, we do lien the property with that
Correct.
amount. So obviously you collect that at a later date, but we'll see where we are
Right,
with
and
that.
again, we were pleased to see the balance was about $25,000, so there's monies in that revolving account. So that's a very good thing. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion, debate? If none, roll call.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Authorizing the city manager acting through the Division of Planning and Development to apply for, accept, and expend a grant in a total amount of $954,000 from the United States Department of Energy under the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant EECBG program. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Broderick, second by Councilor Elliott. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The full reading's been waived. Second reading by title. Authorizing the city manager, acting through the Division of Planning and Development, to apply for, accept, and expend a grant in the total amount of $954,000 from the United States Department of Energy under the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program. Any discussion, any debate? If none, roll call.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Moving on with the agenda. Vote. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 32, the City Council of the City of Lowell acknowledges timely receipt from the city manager on June 9, 2009, of the recommended budget for the City of Lowell for fiscal year 2010, with the understanding that any recommended revisions thereto as may be submitted by the city manager at a later date and prior to the date of final approval of said budget by the city council, shall collectively be considered the proposed budget for fiscal year 2010 for the city of Lowell. A public hearing on the budget as advertised in the Sun on June 6, 2009, to be held on Tuesday, June 16th, 2009 at 5 p.m. and Monday, if needed, June 22nd, 2009 at 5 p.m. in the City Council chambers and on such other dates and times as may be publicly announced by the City Council. Second reading by title. Vote. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 32, the City Council of the City of Lowell acknowledges timely receipt from the City Manager on June 9, 2009 of the recommended budget for the City of Lowell for fiscal year 2010 with the understanding that any recommended revisions thereto as may be submitted by the City Manager at a later date and prior to the date of final approval of said budget by the City Council shall collectively be considered the proposed budget for fiscal year 2010 for the City of Lowell. A public hearing on the budget as advertised in the Sun on June 6, 2009 to be held on Tuesday, June 16, 2009 at 5 p.m. and Monday, June 22nd, 2009 at 5 p.m. in the City Council chambers and on such other dates and times as may be publicly announced by the City Council.
Move approval.
Council Rita Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Mr. Manager, you do have the meals tax included as if we supported it in the budget.
It is based upon the, as you'll see when you go through the budget, it does include an estimate of what the meals tax would provide to the city.
About $2 million.
Exactly.
So, having said that, if this council does not support that meals tax, that equals how many jobs for further layoffs?
That will be
74.
40 to 50 more positions.
40 to 50 people.
Right.
So if this council, and we kind of like boxed in, I didn't want to see 48 go.
Right.
I certainly don't want to see 50 people, more people go. Do we have included in that the utility poll tax at all?
Yes, we do.
We have that as well.
That's correct.
It's kind of difficult to put that in there when perhaps, I believe maybe the House voted for it, but the Senate didn't.
Right.
So
we expect that it will come out. And are you speaking of the poll?
Yes.
The telecommunications tax? Most of that is, we don't pick up a lot on that, but it is an issue that we're watching very carefully to see what the legislature does. And
is it called the municipal relief? Municipal relief?
Municipal Relief or Municipal Partnership Act. It's been given different names at various times.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I wondered what the impact of the 48 layoffs would be to the city. I was somewhere today and the lady said, my sidewalk's in deplorable condition. I said, I'm going to not lie to you. I think it's still going to be in deplorable condition. We laid off 48 people. I don't think we're going to rush down and do your sidewalk. I'm sorry to say that, but I'm not going to lie to this person. Right. How did this 48 people layoff impact the city in what way? Well, I want to know something if you know that.
Would you like to do that tonight, or would you like to do that when we get to the actual budget?
Well,
I'd be happy to do it either way. I mean, we'll quantify it more, obviously, when we make the full presentation, but there's no doubt about it. When you lose staffing, you're going to lose the ability to respond to situations in the city. There's going to be more delays when people come to City Hall. There's going to be, in terms of maintenance of some of our facilities, where we won't be able to get things quite as fast, whether that be cutting the grass at the fields or doing cleanups, repairing sidewalks. We're going to do what obviously the main priority that I have is to deliver services, and we've tried to develop the budget in a way that maximizes the services. I think I've said publicly before, I've heard people at the state level and at city level say that people have to feel the pain before And, I think our position, the city administration, and I certainly think the city council, is of the opinion that there probably will be pain, but that shouldn't be we should be working as hard as we can to avoid any pain. There are limited resources that people have, taxpayers, but I think everyone has to understand that with cuts come a decrease in services.
Are you anticipating moving the veterans over to the senior center?
We are talking about that, yes.
And if you are, what is your future use for the Veterans Office?
We're looking at several different, one possibility is moving a recreation over here and moving them out of the MAC building. Much of the rest of the parks operation is moving out of the MAC building. Now they're already at the cemetery building, and subsequently they'll move to Middlesex Street. That will free up, then we'll be able to get out of the MAC building completely and avoid any costs with that.
So there's still some people at the MAC building?
Yes, just the recreation people right now.
Are we paying any rent there to this? I thought the state owned it.
The state does own that. We have to pay the utilities on it, and
Okay.
we have an issue there with regards to the handicap accessibility. And we need to do something with that if we're going to hold on to that building, but it doesn't
Well,
make sense
the
to
only
do that.
stipulation, and I was looking at the rules governing sending a veterans office into another department, and according to Chapter 115, we were looking at that, but the fact remains that you can ultimately do that, but you have to have a secured, locked section for the records.
That's
for
right.
people that, you understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I
I'll
just
entertain a motion.
I have a question. So this budget is predicated on anticipated revenues for taxes, i.e. meals tax.
That's correct.
So in this budget, how do we treat the meal tax separately, or do we? In other words, doesn't there have to be a special vote to increase taxes?
It will.
When does that take place? After you approve a budget that you've had projected $2 million in? I mean, logistically, how are we doing this?
Well, it's not unusual here for the city of Lowell. All budgets expect or project revenue.
Right.
We project new growth. It may come in at the 1.7 that we've estimated. It may not.
But that's not something we vote on, the new growth.
If I may,
Okay.
the city of Lowell, as you probably recall, has a tradition of voting a budget with the anticipation that there will be free cash, and free cash actually has to be voted by the city council. And in the past, the city of Lowell has voted a budget in June, expecting that there will be free cash. That will be certified sometime in the fall and then voted upon by the city council in December. So it can be done, and it has been done in the city of Lowell.
But the bottom line is, if the city council as a whole does not approve an increase in the meal tax, then that budget will be deficient by approximately estimated $2 million.
Right.
That's correct.
Which would have to be found someplace else.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Councilor Amemisi, you brought up a good point. The council still has the right not to adopt that meals
Absolutely.
tax. And, but once again, if you do that, and I know there's a lot of restaurants in the city that don't want to see it happen, but if you do that, we're going to have to find $2 million someplace else.
Okay.
And it's a domino effect it's mind-boggling, so. I'll entertain a motion to accept
Could I ask one more thing, Mr. Mayor? I'm sorry. So I haven't looked at the budget yet, but what am I anticipating when I open it up? What is your bottom line figure there?
Roughly $286 million, I believe, is the rough number.
286 million, roughly?
Roughly. I don't have that number off the top of my head, the exact number. And that's the total general fund. That includes the non-appropriated expenses, so it's probably less than that. It's probably the actual vote that you'll be taking for the general fund is probably more in the vicinity of 273 million. 264.
264, all right.
Correct.
All right. Including the 2 million there?
Yep.
Yes, it is. That's on page 42 of your budget.
Okay.
Councilor Bill Martin?
So that additional amount, is that primarily the Career Center? To get from the lower number to the higher number?
Why don't you? It's mostly the assessments that come off the cherry sheet.
Yeah,
right?
it's the state assessments. They aren't appropriated even though they're expended.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Council Lindsay.
I don't want to belabor this point, probably something we can get to next Tuesday, but just in these deficits, and I mean, I'm feeling terrible about what's happening and going on in the city and the layoffs and everything. Just a question, Lowell General Hospital has a golf tournament and they raise $500,000. Saints Foundation has a golf tournament and they raise $500,000. Is the city able to do something like that where they can raise money in the form of an event, say out of the special events department, where, you know, we could hold a festival, or we could, you know, doesn't have to be a golf tournament, to raise that kind of money that these hospitals do on a regular basis, year after year, and even if it's only a temporary thing, to take some of the sting out of what's going on here.
Council Lindsay, that's an excellent.
I suggest mud wrestling.
No, but I attended, I think most of us attended.
Reader in a T-shirt.
A function that Mike Lindsay and State Representative Tom Golan had at the Lindsay Banquet Hall, but was outside, and you raised thousands of dollars for Little Leaguers in Pawtuckaville and Centerville. And Councilor Lindsay, that's an excellent idea. Mr. Manager?
I have seen, certainly there are ways of doing that. City officials really cannot do that, because what we'd be doing is soliciting. In each of those cases, the hospitals are soliciting people to give money to the city. There is particularly with the city, any money that came in would go towards retaining employment or any number of other issues, and that could be seen as I would again defer to the solicitor on this, but I believe that's an issue with regards to the conflict of interest statute. You may recall that was an issue, I believe, several years ago with the Winterfest, the first few years of the Winterfest. But other people could step forward and do it. It couldn't be city employees, but I'll defer to the council solicitor.
That's not much to add. The Paula Memorial Library, for example, has a separate fundraising arm that was created for that purpose. So things like that can be done. If the council wanted, the law department could certainly prepare some sort of list of some of the different options that would be available for fundraising purposes. Certainly, as you're all aware, you can accept gifts. And you know, somewhat implicit in that would be the ability to, to have some sort of fundraising activity, but it has to be done within the constraints of state ethics laws under 268A.
So I understand it would have to be in the form of a gift, but for instance, our special events department would be exempt from doing something like that. From putting together an event to raise money that would go to the city as a gift.
You could do probably, it may be worthwhile to have the solicitor's office look at it. I'm just off the top of my head, they could do your idea of a festival. You could do a festival, but you couldn't have the special events staff approach businesses who may have business with the city and ask them to sponsor or to donate. That's why in Winterfest, all of that's done through a separate fundraising committee that does not include the city employees.
You couldn't have a council subcommittee or any members of the council. And when we had the fundraiser for the Merrimack Valley Food Bank,
Friends of the Library.
There was a committee that was formed, and they went out and did all the hard work, and we presented a $50,000 check to the Merrimack Valley Food Bank, but the mayor was not involved because someone called the Ethics Commission to find out if I was. So, that's the way it goes. So, but with the Winterfest, that's all private businesses who contribute. But Michael, that's an excellent idea, and we should move on that. We should, really, and get some people involved. Anyone else want to discuss the budget? I'll entertain a motion to receive the budget as presented by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Lindsay. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The budget has been received. And now I would ask for a suspension of the rules so we can have United Teachers of Lowell President Paul Georges come to the podium. I invited him to the meeting. And Paul, it's nice to see you here. And move for suspension of the rules by Council Rita Mercer, second by Council Milonazo. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. The suspension of rules is in order. Mr. Georges, welcome.
Well, Mr. Caulfield, actually, I'm only here to get a copy of the budget, to be totally
Well,
honest
since
with
you're
you.
here, you could, we sent you, my office sent you a letter inviting
Yes.
you. And if you'd like to discuss anything that's on your mind, feel free to do so.
What's that? Well, I think I do. Yeah, I think that's primary. My concern is the budget. We all understand we're in a tough situation when it comes to the finances for the city and so on. I'd rather look at the details of the budget before I really say anything publicly about it, other than I do think a $5 million hit on the part of the school department is a fairly significant hit, and one that can't be made up easily. We're looking at $9.5 million or 9.1, depending on whose math you're looking at on any particular day. But at this point, we still have a lot of uncertainty because Chapter 70 money is still undefined, as you know. Senate has one number, House has another number. But I would say that if we are going to be looking at some kinds of accommodations on the part of my members, I think it would be appropriate that the City Council look carefully at the budget shortfall that has been sort of attributed to us in the tune of $5 million. We receive about $18.5 million of actual cash from the City of Lowell. To cut $5 million is a significant cut to the tune of about 30%. But our working budget, we really only receive about 12.5% when it actually comes to cash. We know there is another contribution that comes with maintenance of effort and so on. But if you were looking back at 1992, the budget for the school department was about $49 million, and about half of it came from the city. At this point, it's considerably less because of ed reform money. So I would ask you to take that into consideration when you're looking at the budget. Our situation is we're looking at large numbers of cuts, huge numbers of cuts. In the context, please look at it in the context of losing some 400 employees over the last 5 years. I mean, I think if you look at it, we've been able to absorb it to some degree because of attrition. We have a large number of baby boomers who retired, but it strained the system tremendously. And I just think that in light of that, if the City Council can find its way in some way to shorten that $5 million shortfall that's being essentially put onto the school department, it makes it a lot easier for me and other school department side unions to go to their members and look for the kinds of accommodations that might be necessary to get us through this year. But until I look at the budget, I can't get into anything more definitive. I would just put that out there to you. I think the $5 million hit is extremely significant. I don't know anybody else whose budget is being cut by more than a third when it comes to cash flow coming from the city. So I think in that sense, it's somewhat unfair. Now, I know the big deal that sort of raises people's eyebrows is taxes. And nobody likes to see tax increases. And I understand it's an election year. It's difficult. Okay? I understand it's difficult. But understand one thing, a 10% increase or 10 cents increase, or let's say 15 cents on the dollar, would generate over $1 million. If you go to the meals tax, which is something we did not anticipate and found out recently you are going to and perhaps will approve, shouldn't a portion of that be for the school department? So that we can feel in good faith that we can go forward to our members and saying that everybody's involved in this. Everyone is suffering to some degree. I've got 1,500 people. For me to rate, or let's say, how can I put it, defer a significant amount of money, let's just say for the sake of argument, $1 million, that takes about $600 or $700 out of every single one of my employees, one of my members' pockets. Yet a 15-cent income, a 15-cent increase in the tax rate would mean if I had a $200,000 home in the city, I would pay $30 more a year in taxes. $30, 50 cents a week, or something close to it. It's a thought. If we're all in it together, I ask you to show us that we're all in this together. We serve the public. We serve the citizens of Lowell. We educate the kids in Lowell. We don't do this for ourselves. We do it for the kids. Our services are there to educate kids. I'm asking you for some consideration in some form, one way or another, so that we can segue this and say, and really prove to our educators and prove to the teachers that dedicate themselves to your kids in this city, that we're all in it. We're going to make, it's a tough choice, it's hard, but at least we are indeed sharing that sort of, misery index, if you want to put it that way. It's been referred to a number of different ways. So I just ask you to consider that when it comes to budget deliberations.
I'll get you. Mr. Judges, earlier during the meeting,
sure,
many of the councilors applauded and praised the City of Lowell municipal unions for coming to the table and offering a wage freeze at a tune of $1.2 million. And you and I have gone a little round and round on this.
We certainly have.
And I respect you being here. Sure. But I think what we're looking for is maybe the school department to come to the table and give some wage freezes as well. And
well, I think
that's something for another day. But
I think you probably can appreciate, though, when the city manager comes with a $5 million cut, which is a significant percentage of the cash that comes to the school department, and then comes and expects the employees to do it without the city council perhaps giving the appropriate gesture and the appropriate, due process, if you want. One thing I remember, and I'm sure you remember, Mr. Caulfield and many of the city councilors who are here, at one time when the tax bill came from the city of Lowell, on one side was the school department, on the other side was the city side. In almost in all cases, the tax rate was almost the same for both sides. It was pretty much split up. If you did the same thing today, and you deducted the state money in Chapter 70 that comes as a form of ed reform, that it would be totally disproportionate. The taxpayers in the city of Lowell contribute relatively small amount of money as compared to 1992 to the maintenance of their schools. It comes directly from the state. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that perhaps the representatives of 103 or 104,000 people who live in this community might in some way match the kind of perhaps deferment that my 1,500 members might be willing to do as a sign of good faith to keep the system above, floating. We get to a point where the critical mass comes so, how can I put it? We suffer such harm within a school system that the recovery time is so long, and the progress that you made in the past just is lost. The momentum is lost. So I ask you to consider that. I did not come here, I did want to look at the budget before I went into this any further, but I've said this, I'm very public about it. I know some people can criticize me in a number of ways, but I think it's a minimal contribution. We have 103,000 people contributing to one pile, and you got 1,500 in another. 103 don't nearly have to hurt as badly, but the result can be about the same. So that's what I ask you to consider when you go into these deliberations. If indeed there's going to be a meals tax, quite frankly, for the longest time we were told there was not going to be. Now I see within the budget there is, and I heard that on the radio, as a matter of fact, a week or so ago. Shouldn't at least part of that be dedicated to the schools? Are we not substantial enough influence within this city? Quite frankly, I think you've got the best asset that you have in this community is a Lowell Public Schools. So I would ask you to...
Mr. Judges, Manager Lynch would probably explain to you the $5 million and how much we're being local aid. So Manager Lynch, you have the...
Totally aware of that.
Yeah, first off, we don't have a copy of the budget for you tonight, Mr. Judges, but...
I was looking forward to it.
I know. You'll have to wait like everybody else. The council gets it first. We will, it will be posted online tomorrow, and you can certainly swing by and pick up a copy of it. As for the $5 million, there seems to be continued confusion about that, and I thought I made it pretty clear in my public statements on that. The $5 million is $5 million off of last year's budgeted amount. Roughly $3.2 million of that, $5 million, is the reduction in state contribution to the Lowell Public Schools. The actual decrease in the city's contribution to the schools is roughly $1.8 million. That's how we come up with the $5 million number. As for the meals tax, this budget, which includes that contribution to the schools, is based upon the acceptance or the adoption of the meals tax at the state level and at the local level. So the school department is already in the mix for the meals, their portion of the meals tax. If the meals tax is not approved at the legislature, or if it isn't approved at the local level, then the school department will be receiving an additional, will be receiving a reduction beyond that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reason
So I think the city council has been, and if you look back historically, I think the city council has been supportive of the schools, and I anticipate that, and certainly this budget reflects that, and I anticipate that they'll continue to be supportive of the schools.
Well, I guess the confusion was that we were being told there would be no meal tax and the cut was still $5 million. And then afterwards, we found that the meals tax was indeed in play. Now, I understand you have all the authority in the world to either decide the meal tax will work or not. The legislature may or may not approve it. I understand all of that. But I am saying also that a very small, increase in some form of taxation one way or another may be appropriate. Again, being all in it together means we're all in it together, not just the municipal employees who service the city. And you do have levy capacity. I'm not encouraging huge amounts or any of that, but 15 cents, a 15-cent increase results in $1 million additional dollars. And I don't know that the alternative to that is if the school system goes into a tailspin, the negative part of that is property values will be diminished. And that's a fact, and I think you're all aware of it.
Mr. Georges, the municipal side of government is already in a tailspin, and we have a devastating fiscal year ahead of us. Council Rita Mercier, would you like to offer some views, Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to address the speaker. Mr. Georges, I have the greatest respect for you. There's no doubt about it. I would not want to sit on the opposite side of you, as I have in the past.
I'm a nice guy.
And I would want someone like you to defend me, no doubt about that. But I have to say that maybe on your school side, and I hate to say sides, you're getting $5 million less. Our people on our side, on this side, in this chamber, there's $13 million less. And they didn't hesitate 1 minute when they froze their wages. They didn't say, we can't decide to give up anything yet because we can't identify the final numbers from the state. They never said that. They stepped up to the plate, and they gave. And I'm not going to even blame your teachers, because I know your teachers. Mm-hmm. I just think that you haven't delivered a message to say what I want you to say, because you could be a hero here. I go to many places, and I see teachers stocking up carriages with pencils and books and papers coming out of their own pockets. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I know that they'd be willing to step up to the plate, but they haven't, because the leader, which is you, mm-hmm. should be asking them, please give up something. Give up your raise, because I say to you,
we don't have a raise, we do not have a raise coming.
Well, you could freeze something to the tune of $3 million, and that'd be $2 million less that you got. And you drive a hard bargain when you say it's only 17 cents. Say that to the person on Social Security that's mm-hmm. on a fixed income that I have to represent. Mm-hmm. I have to represent these people. So they're not able to go out and get another job or spend extra mm-hmm. hours. Think about that. You have a responsibility too, Mr. Georges, to please tell your union, please help us out. Did you give anything in fiscal year 09? Those very people that were laid off Friday did in the last fiscal year. Did you?
Yeah, we didn't as a group of union members. The school department did, because they were able to find the $1.6 million or whatever it was that they needed. There was no asking us on it. But there is one thing.
And what did you give up?
We don't want to get into a full.
Can I just answer you though on one thing? One thing, Ms. Mercier. I understand the city unions came forth, and I accolades for them. That's fine.
We could have accolades
for you. Please, I don't need the accolades. I just want to explain how there is a difference.
You're not going to get accolades, because
I don't need them. I don't need them. I need to represent my members aggressively, and that's precisely what I do. But what the city unions gave up And believe me, they all did this for their own reasons, and God bless them, and I support them in any way I possibly can. But they gave contracted salary increases in fiscal 2010, starting this fiscal year, coming fiscal year. We have 0 on the table for this coming fiscal year. Well, I spoke with Keith Rudy, I spoke with virtually everybody else out there. They are the increases that were scheduled to come in next fiscal year. We're not in that situation. We have 0 on the table. We don't have a contract as of July 1st. That's different. In our case, if teachers were to be giving up something, they would be taking money from their pocket. Their paycheck would decrease from today till the new fiscal year. That's a little different than putting off or abating, if you want, a salary increase that's scheduled because you had negotiated previously. But again, I didn't come here to debate this. I came in here just
I'm very happy you did come.
Well, but you invited me here so this would happen, and that's fine. But the fact of the matter is, I'm here to look at the budget, to scrutinize it, to guide my members and advise them the best way that I possibly can. And quite frankly, I always take things with a grain of salt, including we still don't know where the budget is. Ultimately, we don't know what the state's going to be doing. Well, I've made it very clear to you that I'm not afraid to ask my members to, in some way, try to help defray some of the costs for next year.
Well, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that?
I'll do that when I'm sure everyone's in the
I
game.
want to recognize Council Broderick, then we're going to move on. Council Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate you coming down, Mr. Georges, and you're going to get a copy of the budget and you can analyze it. I think it would be wise at this point if we table this discussion, because I haven't had the opportunity to review it either. And my understanding is there is something in the budget for an increase tax. Is there a tax increase built into this budget you presented?
There's a 2.5% increase. Yes.
So we are increasing at 2.5%. I just think we all need to understand these numbers. I don't know this $5 million. I haven't been privy to any conversations or meetings, a school committee or otherwise. Before we make suggestions that we're cutting a third, I know I have a lot of questions to find out where are these numbers really at. I think it probably makes sense that we table this until we have an opportunity to at least review the budget and ask our questions. And obviously, I think we all welcome you back to have a discussion. But as you said, you're here to aggressively represent your membership, and I think that hopefully everybody on your side and you understand that we're here not necessarily aggressively, but fairly represent the whole city. And this does have a tax increase built into it, so I just want to make you aware of that. I don't know if I know you haven't seen it yet, but I think it's important to tell people that, and that if we can table this until we have some more information, because I don't know really a whole lot about some of these numbers and what you're alleging to be facts.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for being here this year. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Yes, you will.
And I imagine tomorrow night will be a long budget session. And
I suspect it will.
And I've told the school department and on the city side as well, we don't relish making these cuts. We don't. And throughout the state, every city manager, town administrator, every mayor, they don't have the facts and figures before them either. The state has to release that, and it's devastating. And our representatives told us 9 months ago, tighten your belts, and it's here. So that's what we have to do. So,
well, thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Georges, very much. Thank you. Moving on with the agenda. Authorizing the city manager into a license agreement with Amy Restaurant to encroach upon the City of Lowell property at 602 Merrimack Street, Lowell, Massachusetts. Be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows, that the city manager is hereby authorized to enter a license agreement with a May Restaurant to encroach upon the City of Lowell property at 602 Merrimack Street for an overhanging awning to the extent of, and more particularly described in Exhibit A attached hereto, made a part of this license agreement. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Kazanjian, seconded by Council Milonazo. All in favor of waiving the full reading, signify by saying aye. The full reading's been waived. Second reading by title, authorizing the city manager into a license agreement with the May Restaurant to encroach upon the City of Lowell property at 602 Merrimack Street, Lowell, Massachusetts. Any debate, any questions, any discussions? If none, roll call.
Councilor Armin Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott? Councilor Kazanjian?
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi?
Yes.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Subcommittee reports. Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, the Public Safety Subcommittee met this evening at 5:30. We had Councilor Elliott and Councilor Alan Kazanjian present, along with yourself, Mayor Caulfield, and Councilor Rita Mercia. We also had City Manager Lynch, along with Assistant City Manager T.J. McCarthy. Chief Ken LaValle was here as well. And the reason for the meeting was to revisit the ordinance that we had actually had a public hearing and discussion on back in January, having to do with Chapter 104 and instituting a new Article 4 regarding pit bulls. And the discussion, which I thought was a good one, between the councils in attendance, as well as the administration, as well as advocates for, or advocates, if you will, from MSPCA, the Humane Society, and the like, regarding the issue of the new ordinance. And it really came down to the issue of dealing with irresponsible owners, dealing with enforcing the current legislation that we have in place. And on a motion by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Kazanjian, it was recommended that we request the city manager to put in place the Animal Advisory Committee by the next city council meeting, to bring that back to the council for a vote, and then to have this ordinance go before that committee for report and recommendation back to the full council. We need to do something. We had a tragic event happen last week. In fact, come to find out, it was the third pit bull incident that we've actually had in the city since January 1st. And we, as a public safety committee, and I know we as a full council, want to make sure that our residents are safe. As it was pointed out, obviously Lowell is full of urban neighborhoods, and we want to make sure that whatever legislation and ordinances we have in place regarding vicious dogs, regarding pit bulls specifically, that those ordinances are enforceable. So the recommendation, or a report of progress, if you will, to the council is that the manager come back next meeting, 2 weeks from tonight, with the members of that advisory committee, and the ordinance itself would be their first item to take up as an issue. It was also mentioned by Councilor Kazanjian, aptly so, that we make sure that the advocates are there from MSPCA, from the Humane Society, from our own police department and the like, to make sure that we have a workable, enforceable ordinance at the end of the day. So I present that as a report of progress.
Councilor Milonazo, I want to thank you for convening the meeting, along with Councilor Kazanjian, Councilor Elliott, and it's a serious issue we have to address, and I don't want to dwell on it, I don't want to belabor it, but Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to dwell on it either, although I think it's important to note that Councilor Milonazo brought this matter up several weeks ago. We had agreed to revisit the pit bull ordinance after a period of time, and the vicious dog ordinance, and he actually brought it to the council and said he was going to schedule this hearing long before this incident occurred, right. The current incident that happened recently to the little girl. So I know there's been some discussion about, the council didn't do anything for a period of time, and now it's reacting to a bad situation. But I think Councilor Milonazo, at least for one, was well out ahead of this issue, and has been planning on this hearing for some time. So it doesn't help the situation, the accident that occurred, but certainly he, as chairman of the subcommittee, is not being reactionary at all, and had been intending to address this issue all along.
I know he had planned this subcommittee meeting a month ago, and he and I discussed it, and we're finally going to, I think, get down to the nuts and bolts of this issue. I was happy to hear from some of the speakers a placard may be necessary, and we should look into all those different options. So adopt the recommendation brought forward by the Public Safety Subcommittee by Councilor Rita Mercia, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Thank you. And Mr. Manager, at the next council meeting, we will have some form of a board put together to address this issue. Thank you. Petitions. A Hair Tech, 600 Central Street, request overhanging awning, 21 feet by 4 feet, referred to Law Department by Councilor Kazanjian, seconded by Councilor Lindsay. Also, Egg Roll Cafe, 110 University Avenue, overhanging sign, 4 feet by 4 feet, referred that to the Law Department by Councilor Mercia and Councilor Bill Martin. Does anyone else have, I neglected to ask, were there any more subcommittee reports? I'm sorry, Council Rita Mercer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that it isn't on the agenda, but there were two claims. There was one for property damage and one for personal injury. I had two claims. Did you? I had
Yes,
two claims.
I did. Yes.
One for property damage and one for personal injury.
It's not on the agenda. I don't have it on
And
the
I'd like to refer them to the law department if we know what we're referring. I do have them right here.
Why don't you read them, Council, and we'll vote on it?
Well,
I don't have it before me. Huh?
Second.
I'd rather not.
It's not on the agenda.
No, but they were in our packet.
They were in our, yeah, they are in our packet.
Okay. Why don't you,
I don't want to read them, but refer them to the
okay.
law department.
Refer them to the law department?
Yes.
By
Yes,
Council Rita
to
Mercer,
claim-
second by Council
claims.
Kazanjian. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry. It's all right.
Okay, we're into the area of motions, and we only have two motions this evening. Motion by Council Rita Mercer, request the City Council to support action to dedicate the Industrial Avenue Circle as Mickey Ward Circle, and that the motion be referred to the State House delegation through Representative Kevin Murphy. Seconded by Council Brunner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a motion that is long overdue, but I say better late than never when it comes to recognizing the accomplishments of any individual who magnifies the identity of a great city and shines a light to do it in a positive way, such as Mickey Ward did for the city of Lowell. For many years, this fighter worked tirelessly to make a name for himself, and along the way, he brought honor and recognition to not only himself, but to our city as well. It is only fitting that we do something permanent for him and show our gratitude as well. Just as Jack Kerouac, James McNeill Whistler, Betty Davis, Ed McMahon, as well as NASA's astronaut Richard Linehan are fine examples of the people who made our city proud, so too did Mickey Ward. He could have moved out of the city, but he chose to remain right here. I'm very proud of this fine young Lowell American idol, so to speak. How many of us can say that a book was written about us or that a movie was made highlighting our career? The only thing that I can say proudly is that I was the only woman, the only mayor who had the courage to put on his fight robe and get into the ring to give him a go at it.
And he was afraid of you.
He knew my body was a lethal weapon, and he retreated, and rightfully so. Suffice it to say that he is the champ, and this honor is long overdue. The circle of land at Industrial Avenue represents Mickey's life that came full circle to where he is today. If my colleagues feel as I do and support this motion, then I'd ask that this motion be referred to the State House delegation by way of State Representative Kevin Murphy, whose district that it's in, and ask that the circle of state land be designated for the use of recognizing the accomplishments of Mickey Ward, the resident, the fighter, world champ. Thank you.
Any other, yes, Council Kazanjian.
I think it's a great motion. I'm long overdue. Mickey Ward is a champ today, and this city's proud of him, and I'm supporting the motion 100%.
Council Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is a good motion. 2 years ago, when I served as vice mayor, I had an opportunity to represent Mayor Bill Martin at the time at the graduation ceremony for Youth Build, and the speaker was Mickey Ward. And I have to tell you that the kids, and there were probably 25 or 30 kids in attendance, I mean, there wasn't a sound out of him. They just listened to every word he had to say, and he did a terrific job, and he really spent the time with the kids, and he really did, like I said, a wonderful job. So I think this is a good motion to be referred to the state delegation.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor
I just want to indicate how great this motion is, as far as I'm concerned. They're doing a casting call now, and they're looking for someone who can represent me, as I gave him a key to the city when he come back after fighting that fight. And now we're going to have to give a casting call to have someone represent Rita in the ring with the robe. for that movie. No, that's a great motion, well-deserved. I would only hope that we could go so far as, and I know we can't financially, but the circle would be nice if there was a statue of Mickey, like they have for Rocky.
Like Rocky.
You know? And I know maybe the private sector could probably think about putting something like that together. Because can you imagine going on around that circle and seeing a picture, in fact, some of the scenes we've seen with Mickey, that'd be tremendous.
Brockton has Rocky Marciano, and we have Mickey Ward.
Yep.
Anyone else? Council Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a great motion, and Mickey's a great guy and a class act, and I think that one of the things that we all recognize and people at home may not know is how much time Mickey gives up and donates and how much effort he puts into helping other kids, whether it's a Boys and Girls Club, fundraisers, appearances, whatever he can do to help children and people in the city. I think that's what people sometimes don't hear and don't realize about Mickey. There's a private side of him that he likes to keep private, as people know, and he's just a tremendous guy and a great asset for the city and one of the best promoters of the city. So I think this is it's a fitting tribute, and look forward to whatever we can come up with, whether it's a statue or something nice there. Thank you.
Wonderful. Maybe that producer or director of the movie that they're making could find ways or means of...
Be a great bronze statue of him in one of his, his poses after winning the fight. Great.
When Mickey Ward was fighting in London, he was fighting that night, and I said, I'm going to take a chance, and Arthur Romello gave me the number, and I called the hotel at 12 noon. It was 12 noon. And I said, could I have Mickey Ward's room? And sure. The phone rang, and Mickey Ward picked up the phone. And I said, this is Councilor Caulfield. The entire city is rooting for you. They're behind you. And he won that fight. But I think every councilor has indicated the man is extremely humble. And I don't know how many marathons, Boston marathons, he has run for kids in disability sports. 26 miles. He's done that 5 or 6 years in a row. He gives back immensely. And this would be a great tribute, not to Mickey Ward, but to Mickey Ward and his family and everyone that respects boxing. So it's a great motion, Council. Thank you for bringing it forward. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Last motion of the evening.
Speaks for itself.
Motion by Council Rita Mercier. City Council requests the city manager to have the law department draw the proper vote and the traffic division to post a 60-day trial handicap parking sign at 32 Kingsman Street.
Second, and it speaks for itself.
Seconded by...
He just said it.
Speaks for
He's my
itself.
mouthpiece.
All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Before we adjourn.
Whoops.
Jambra,
yeah,
Karen Bell,
night.
Saturday, the Edward Early Garage, 5 p.m. It's going to be a lot of exciting things happening there. Gentlemen's Songsters, Charlie Bellieu's cars, everything. And try to make that. And Mr. Manager, I did go in to see Garcia Brogan Pub. I'm going to tell you, this is going to be beautiful. All handmade woodwork, and it's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And I'm going to request and ask my colleagues on this council, Manager Lynch, the firefighters are having a memorial mass Sunday. We should be there for them. They were there for us. I believe Council Mercier had said 8:30 in High Street. But those who can't walk, we'll see you right here at 9 o'clock and be with them for this very holy occasion. They have a memorial mass once a year, and that's the least we can do for them after them coming to the plate, offering those wage freezes. With that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Lowell. Thank you.